General knowledge, let's deal with general knowledge first. It's the same as all the other syllabuses. Of course, here, as I've mentioned to you already, you don't get as much on the page. So the examiner doesn't have the ability to be able to ask lots of questions about what does that sign mean and, you know, all that sort of stuff. We can certainly ask key signatures and time signatures and just the generic things that are on the page. But we're going to be also asking questions about the dramatic content. And we'll talk a little bit more about that truthful storytelling and those aspects in the next session. But in the lower grades, you know, even at the most basic level, we will want to know who's the character, what's the storyline. I did a masterclass a couple of weeks ago, and a boy sang a song that was actually written for a female in the show. But even so, we still talked about what was her character doing in the show. He had his own interpretation of it, which was totally fine and worked beautifully, had a beautiful voice. But still, I'm going to want to know about the character and where they are and all that sort of stuff. As the grades progress, I want more detail. What's happened in the scene prior to this? What happens during the song? Where is the character at the end of the song? And then in the very senior grades, I'm going to want detailed information about the composer, their influences, other shows that they may have written, and some basic information about the things that I talked to you about of the last 100 years, that basic structure of musical theatre and where things are at. I don't need masses of detail, but some general knowledge about, because it is general knowledge, but some knowledge about where music theatre has come from in the last 100 years is really fantastic. It's also important to say that I know that a lot of the general knowledge portion in the other syllabuses is sort of question and answer, but I'm hoping as much as possible, there will be certainly question answer for the lower grades, but I'm hoping that in the higher grades, the general knowledge becomes more conversational. And we can allow the candidate to have a bit of a discussion, and there can be a bit of forward and back discussing whatever they've studied and wherever they've taken their study. And I always like at the end of my general knowledge bit to ask the candidate if there's anything else that they've studied that I haven't asked them or they haven't had a chance to tell me. And it's usually during those moments that a candidate tells me something fantastic like, you know, Bach had 25 children, or, you know, something interesting which is outside of the regular stuff. And it's great just to know that they're exploring other things, and we can be a bit silly and talk about that. I always usually allow people to tell me something. So, you know, I like it to be something interesting, or, you know, a little piece of information that I might know or I might not know, but I like that. Adele. Yep.
As to what they do here, and there's more and more examiners are actually using this conversational style, not just questionnaire, but having a conversation with the student, and that goes right across all.
Great. It's I conduct myself in the exams that way. I like it much more. I think I'm able to tell much more from the conversation about what the student has actually learnt, and I think you get some really interesting pieces of information. Sometimes you get that quirky student who does some reading on their own, and they save that bit of information, which is absolutely useless, but that piece of information which is fascinating. You know, like a candidate once told me that Elton John, when he was asked to write the music for The Lion King, thought that, you know, how could it possibly be that successful, a show about singing animals? So he was offered by Disney the choice of a flat fee for the writing of the music or to take royalties. And he decided that it probably wasn't going to work, the show. So he took a flat fee. I know. I mean, the man's not poor. So that's fine. But you see how, like, that's interesting? Yeah. So, I mean, I like my students to at least go into an exam knowing a couple of pieces of actually interesting information that, you know, the examiner might find humorous or, you know, engage them in conversation. But I agree, Adele, I certainly like that engagement with the candidate where we get to chat, certainly in the high grades, maybe not in level 1, and you know, but you know, as much as we possibly can, I appreciate that.